Welcome to IDG Chit Chat Live for the week of January 11th, 2016. Today we will be talking about Tuesday's episode of Finding Your Roots titled The Irish Factor with Bill O'Reilly, Soledad O'Brien, and Bill Maher. Hope you all are ready. Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Combs-Bennett. I'm the creative director for the In-Depth Genealogist. Joining me this evening is Terry O'Connell, our executive director. Unfortunately, our publisher, Jennifer Alford, could not join us this evening. So you'll have a short little show with just the two of us. Hi, Terry. How are you?
I'm doing good, Shannon. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I can talk this week. That's the important part.
That is awesome because you are sounding much better.
Oh, I'm feeling much better.
Good.
And I'm glad we spared the audience my cackling.
It was pretty bad.
So let's see here. You and I are going to discuss the Irish Factor. I like the titles of the episode so far.
Me too.
Yeah, it's different. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
No, I'm like.
So this I thought was a very interesting, very good episode. I thought it was interesting also, I'm saying that's my new catchword for the night, I guess, how they were all had New York ties too. Did you notice that? Or was it just me?
No, they did, but I think they all came over in a time frame where, it was kind of like you stayed centrally located.
Well, I looked at my husband, we were watching the episode, and I said, they're all from New York. He's like, well, isn't that where the Irish are from? New York, Boston, or Chicago? And I'm like, shut up.
That's what you get for asking a stupid question, right?
Yeah.
It's true, though. They all were. I mean, still prominently in New York.
Yes. Oh, yes. Very proud.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. I mean, I know we still have New York ties, but not like city,
Right. See, my husband's Irish ancestry are all from New York City, and they spread out by the 1930s, 1940s to other places. Some of them are still in New York, no longer in the city, but like upstate. Some of them are in Connecticut. The rest of them kind of moved out across the country. My direct line Irish ancestors all ended up in Indiana before 1870. So I didn't have anybody after that come over. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Farmers went.
Mine didn't get to Chicago till the 20s, the 1920s. So we were late.
Yeah, I don't have any late immigrants. Sometimes I get jealous of those people who have like 20th century immigration and late immigrant people, because
that's funny because I feel the other way around. I'm like, people, like when I go to a Chicago Society meeting and people are talking about their early immigrants and their pioneers, and I'm like, 1920s. It's like yesterday.
Yeah, but you know more information about them.
Because it was my grandfather, so I knew him.
Right. All I know is Ireland.
Well, yeah. But it took me 15 years to get past the Ireland.
Oh.
So.
For your grandfather, really?
Well, he was born actually in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
Dad was born in New York. He was born in New Hampshire, which is where his dad married, and then they moved back to New York. And then when he was grown, him and his brother came to Chicago, and the mom and the stepdad came to Chicago and sister. So, but yeah, so it's late. That's what I feel. I don't know. I should be thankful because then I'd be complaining about the Chicago fire ruined all the records and I can't trace them.
There's always something to complain about in genealogy.
Yes. And with that, we should jump into family war.
That's right. So, gosh, I took 4 pages of notes. So
I don't have that much. I have a few.
Okay. Did any one particular segment jump out at you or catch you off guard or by surprise?
No, all the segments were good, and personally, I thought the beginning was very slow. Like, really, we were talking about all this like recent history, and I'm like, oh, get back. Right? We want further. But they did set it all up very well. So nothing really jumped out at me. I guess the biggest thing I liked was that when they were discussing the family tree that Soledad O'Brien's family had back, in Australia, painted on the wall. It was a huge, huge
Right,
deal.
right.
And at the top was this king, Brian Boru. And that's fine. And they didn't really go into all of that, but they did come back and say, we did, research, and it's false. And I just laughed. I'm like, everybody has a story. It's a king. It's an Indian princess.
Shut up. Shut up.
But I thought about that and I just laughed. I'm like, it doesn't matter what walk of life we've come from. Everybody has that story.
Everybody wants to be royalty.
That's right. We all want to come. I don't want to come from that royalty. But it's funny. I don't remember where I was having this discussion the other day, but somebody had put down that in some group that they were descended from something, blah, 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 some royalty. And somebody replied, well, what are your sources? And he's like, oh, I found it on Genie. And then they deleted it because, that's promotional. And I replied, I'm like, you can't believe everything. I'm like, on two of my lines, one line I'm related to a president. I emailed that Presidential Historical Society, and they're like, we have no connection to that family name. Okay, that's fine. Another line, I'm to royalty, and the daughter that's supposedly the princess died as an infant. And it's just going around and around and around, and it's like, we all have these ties, and people wanting us to be important.
Well, you want to have a good story,
the stories, I think the stories of the regular Joe is fine too. I've got a lot of great stories. I mean, just the immigrants, we'll go stick with the Irish coming over after the famine and survived. They survived and came after.
Right. And, I have a significant number who came over in the 1700s. And then I have an Irish immigrant family who their first child was born in Baltimore in 1858. So they had to come over, either that year or slightly before. I don't know how long I don't know when they arrived. So, they've survived and they've come over. And then my husband's family, his Irish line, it was an Irish husband and a Scottish wife. They immigrated here. Their first child was born in 1870. So they had to have been here, late 1860s, I would say, I would guess. So yeah, they all survived and came over, which I just find amazing.
Mine were having babies in the famine. My second great grandfather was born 1857 in County Cork.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, how did she nourish the baby those 9 months? I will tell you this. I had a child tell me once, I can't do this. And I looked at him and I said, your family survived the famine and came here after. You can do anything. Think about it.
Well, how they were talking about how, 1 million died from the famine and the aftermath. It affected the island so much that only until, gosh, when did the Great Recession hit? What, 5-6 years ago? We had the economic decline across the world.
2008, 2009.
So right before that, they finally got back up to pre-famine population in Ireland.
Oh, I thought they were still down.
Well, they went back down because when the economic depression hit, people started leaving again to find jobs. But they had just got back to pre-famine numbers right before the economic depression hit.
Wasn't it like after everything was said and done, they were only at like 30% population, like 70%? I mean, the numbers were drastic.
It was amazing. Yep.
Yeah, that is kind of like, if you think about it, that's a long time to take to get to
160 years, roughly.
Oh my God.
Give or take, to build up a population back to the numbers it was.
It's funny, when we were there in October, our first day there, when we were walking down O'Connell Street, there was a gentleman collecting money for not famine relief, but homeless, to feed the homeless. And I was like, Give me money, because we're putting money in their box. You just can't help but feel what these people have gone through,
Hmm.
that you just have to give back.
Right. Well, I speaking of interesting family stories, I thought the story that Soledad O'Brien's family uncovered about the Defiance flour mill was
Loved it.
rather was fantastic. Right
Just that they
there.
named clients.
Yeah. Well, when they first said, Defiance flour mill, my husband and I looked at each other and I thinking to myself, that's a story. There
Yeah,
there's going to be a story there. There has to be.
right. Because what kind of name, like
Right.
clients, like why? It
And,
makes no sense. But
and
when
all
you
I
get
could
this,
right, and all I could think of was that is an in your face comment.
the ultimate screw yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was, Bill Maher, whose grandfather was the head of the union,
Mm-hmm.
got to speak to President Woodrow Wilson and
Oh
get
my God, that was
yeah,
amazing.
that. I mean, that as Henry Louis Gates said, that's some chutzpah.
Yes. And it was funny because, it wasn't it Bill who said this is who, what did he say? This is where I come from. It truly, truly is.
Right,
To
right.
see that kind of the same thing in your family, whether you know it or not, it happens.
Hmm.
I laugh because when I was 19 and I got my first big girl job, I worked I worked for a paper company in the suburbs here. And when I started doing genealogy, can I tell you that my grandfather, my great grandfather, and maybe even my second great grandfather all worked for paper companies?
Oh, how weird.
Freaky weird. Freaky weird. So I totally, when Bill said that, I was like, yeah, I get it. And even Bill O'Reilly with his dad and his mom, one very Republican, one very Democratic,
Right.
laughing about it, cancel each other out. But here he is, okay, he's picked his side, and that's fine. I don't want to get into the politics of it. But he's a part of, I mean, obviously politics were very strong, that they had conversations over their
Right.
conflicting views, that he grew up voicing his opinions.
Right. Can I just say, oh my God, he is tall.
I didn't pay attention.
Like Henry Louis Gates came to like here on him. It was like, oh my God, he is a tall, tall man. Sorry,
that's
I'm a short.
that's
I'm
unordinary for an Irishman.
yes, I'm not abnormally short, but I am short. So anybody who's like tall, I'm amazed at. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, what can you do? Um, well, how about, did you notice when they showed the picture of his grandfather, Bill O'Reilly's grandfather, and his grandmother, the strong family resemblance?
Yes,
I
in the
noticed it
nose
the
right there.
first time when I watched it, but when I watched it this afternoon, I was like, wow, that's like
Hmm.
really.
It's kind of sometimes I find it almost creepy when those family resemblances come back up after several generations because logically you would think in your head with genetics and everything that some of the, everybody's unique, right? But then there are those strong features that just pop
Mhm.
out. And you're
That
like,
like that's completely, you know,
yeah,
whatever family.
has that trait. Yep. Yep, yep.
Mhm. It is funny. I met a cousin once. Found him online on Ancestry. He was doing one of my grandma's lines, and we met a couple months later. He was in town, and we met and we took pictures. And I brought him home, and my husband was like, "Let me see the pictures." And I showed him. He's like, "Oh my God! Like you guys have the same eyes, the same forehead."
Oh,
So it is cool when
funny.
you see how far out you are, and yet you can still come back and see
Right.
your family.
So I found I'm kind of curious to know why Soledad, when they found out that her ancestor was the convict to Australia, because
Mhm.
you knew there was Australians. Yeah, there has to be a convict there somewhere,
Right.
right?
I think the shots were to the very end of the show to cover that,
Right,
and it wasn't even from Ireland; they were from Scotland.
right. And I'm curious to know why she would think that her parents would be so ashamed. I guess it's a everybody has
Culture.
their cultural family quirk type of thing.
Yeah, I think, hey, that's cool.
Yeah, but you like black sheeps.
I do. It's only because I have so many. Um, I think that with her story, okay, so the great great, I think it was her third great grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
The husband died in his 30s.
Right.
He
39,
was
I
like, yeah, he was 39, and she had no way to support the kids. So it totally made sense what they were doing, and you can't really fault her, you
think.
know.
An Oliver Twist story.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like she could readily go get a job that would be respectable.
Right.
So you steal, sell yourself, steal, sell yourself. I pick steal too,
Yeah.
you know?
And that time period in Edinburgh, which is, if I remember correctly, that's where they said they were from.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily a good time to be living in Scotland, if I remember correctly from my history. I mean, it was a very poor time as well.
Hmm.
And if you had no means, yeah, how are you going to support yourself? You do anything possible, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You just, very courageous woman doing what she had to do to keep her family
Hmm.
alive. And if she had to bring some other little teenagers in to get food, well, more power to her. Uh,
So the DNA thing, Bill O'Reilly and Bill Maher, their reactions were a little,
they were hysterical. I gotta say,
they were.
Bill O'Reilly, I expected his to be the worst of the
Oh,
reaction.
really?
I kind of did, and he kind of like joked about it. He's like, Bill's gonna hate this. You're ruining his career." I laughed at that. I thought that was kind of funny. But Bill Maher's, oh my gosh, why did you have to ruin a good book?
I don't know. He's a comedian. I can never tell if he's if that's just the
No, he
comedian
looked kind of
coming out.
serious. It
Yeah.
was funny though. I thought it was great that they're not only with the people that are going to be on their show, but they're looking at past guests as well,
Mhm. Mhm.
like Soledad and Jimmy Kimmel,
No,
right?
it
It
was
was
Stephen Colbert.
Stephen Colbert. That's it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I thought it was even funnier because her her mom's questioning, "Who is this man? Why is he
Oh.
doing this?"
Satire. Satire.
Uh,
So I was curious since they started out with Bill and Bill and they're doing the Y-DNA and finding out that they have the same haplogroup.
mhm.
Um, so I was wondering when they started out like that if they were going to find if they were going to do a haplogroup thing also with the Irish DNA for Soledad. Like, were they going to get her father or brother or someone to test? So I thought it was
Oh,
interesting
that would
how,
have been cool.
yeah. And they just might not have shown it. So we never know what happened. But showing the autosomal testing was pretty nice, especially since not only the two bills have the Y DNA match, but then the segment of DNA to make them cousins was
Right.
through they showed the autosomal chromosome they showed the chromosome map, so that was pretty.
And that who was it? I gotta look at all my notes here. Who matched who? Who matched? Was it Bill Maher matched Skip?
Yes.
That was cool.
Hmm.
Which is
With,
obviously why he's running everybody through the thing, so he
with
can see.
yeah, with the Y DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I the those haplogroups, there's very few true Irish haplogroups out there. And the Nile of the Nine Hostages, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the whole Irish name because my Gaelic is non-existent. But
Mine too.
but it's one of those true. And I actually pulled up the Family Tree DNA site, and it has a little paragraph here which I think is really interesting and I like to read just so people have
Sure.
kind of a background for it. It says a recent study conducted at Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland, found that a striking percentage of men in Ireland and quite a few in Scotland share the same Y chromosome, suggesting that the 5th century warlord known as Niall of the Nine Hostages may be the ancestor of 1 in 12 Irishmen.
Wow.
Yeah, Nile established a dynasty of powerful chieftains that dominated the island for 6 centuries. In this study, scientists found an area in northwest Ireland where they claimed 21.5% carry Nile's genetic fingerprint.
Wow.
Yeah, the same area of Ireland has previously been subject of anthropological study and has shown a strikingly high percentage of men from the haplogroup RM269 at 85%. So it's they are saying that that area is what they call is the power base of the Nile kings. So
Mhm.
and it goes on from there. So um, it's one of the more powerful Irish DNA haplogroups for men.
Some of the O'Connells do descend through Nile.
Hmm.
We are not one of them.
Okay.
It's funny
Yeah.
because we are in the O'Connell surname group right now. We are segmented by ourselves.
Hmm. Oh,
Like,
because you don't match anybody?
yeah, nobody close enough. They want me to upgrade to the. We're at 37 markers. They want us to do the next one up
Right.
to see what that will tell them because they're learning lots of good things through it. So,
Right.
you know, that's next on my list of things I need to pay for.
Right. It's kind of like my dad is participating in a surname study for our family's surname, and he matches nobody. There's nearly 1,000 people in the database, and nobody matches him. Oh, except for his brother. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But that's one of the frustrating things is because we would love to know that's one of our big brick wall ancestors. And my dad, who's getting older, that he's like, before I die, you have to tell me where the family comes from besides Virginia.
No pressure.
No
I hope
pressure.
hope he's of good health.
Moderately for a mid 70s-year-old man.
Yeah.
Um, but he's like, the family history says we're Scottish or Irish. I'm like, let's pick one. Are you
Just tell him
Scotch?
Scott's Irish.
Yeah. And then my husband, um, he and so my dad did the Y-DNA test, and he has the most common Y-DNA haplogroup for men of European descent. So he is obviously a white European male. And my husband is part of the Western modal haplogroup, which is another most common. So it's like y'all aren't helping me here. Really not helping me.
Oops.
It'll take time.
Yeah, that's what my thing is, we did this test maybe 3 years ago, and I'm like, whatever, as long as we learn something from it. And the administrators I've met with, so that's fine. I'll just
Just
do
keep
my
going. Yeah.
once a year I pop in, look at it, see if we've been segmented anymore, and then send a note and say, what did you learn from this, or what does it mean to me?
Right.
So
Funny.
it is.
So we're coming up on almost 30 minutes. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think that would be good for us to talk about?
Well, we should talk a little bit, I think, about the famine. I think they kind of
Yeah.
glossed over it very, very quickly.
Well, yeah.
Um,
And I was a little disappointed by that. I thought they could have they concentrate sometimes on so many other aspects of history more in depth, where this was a good time to discuss not only the plight of the Irish, but the famine, how it was seen, multiple different cultures, multiple different viewpoints, not only, and then, they touched briefly again on how then the Irish were treated here, but they could have gone so much more. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think the first thing, they blamed it all on the crop failing, but
It
that
was,
really isn't
that was kind of like the nail in the coffin.
right.
Yeah.
Well, they don't talk about the rest of the crops and what happened to them because they weren't just farming just potatoes. You
Right.
know, everything was being shipped back to England.
Right. Well, potatoes were the main sustenance for the Irish, and the other
Right.
crops were for the English. Hmm.
Exactly. They didn't talk about. Ugh, I'm losing my mind.
That's okay.
Um,
I think there's one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that some of the Protestant churches in England were actually raising taking food donations and sending it to Protestant churches in Ireland to try to help with the famine relief. But due to poor communication between the Protestant and Catholic churches, most of the time the food never left the church and it just sat and rotted in the basement of these Protestant churches across Ireland because they had no way to get it out to the people, or there was just such a poor communication and distribution system that people were sending supplies and were trying to help, but it never saw the people who needed it the most.
That's a complete travesty. Like that is not something that I'd heard before. So it just really dumbfounds me. Like even if you put it out through just a word, like for your community, we have food.
Yeah,
Come to the church, we have food.
right. Yeah, I know. It's, and but it also maybe there's also that strong Protestant Catholic line, which is a
Time
whole nother
would have been.
segment.
Yeah,
That could be a whole show in of itself.
that could be quite a few.
Yeah, and I
You
mean,
think at a time like this is when you say, okay, we can't divide.
you would think so, but I think maybe even in some of the more rural communities, that was still a line you did not cross. I mean, the first time I ever heard the term mixed marriage was in a reference to a Protestant and a Catholic marriage.
Oh my gosh, that's historical. When I was there, I was told being Catholic or being Protestant isn't about religion.
Hmm.
It's about a way of life.
Yeah. It also,
It's about
Protestant.
being Italian or being Polish.
Mhm.
It's your heritage. It's not just your religion.
Right. Well,
So
also the Protestants were also the invaders, remember? Like I said, we could go on and on about Irish history,
yeah,
but but a lot of the Protestants were put there as far back as Henry VII
mm-hmm.
to be the new ruling class to bring the Irish in line, and Elizabeth I even, tried to use them. So they were brought in. They weren't, most of them, while a lot of the Protestant nobles went, I guess you could say they went more native than they were intended to be and became Irish. There's still that you are an invader in a lot of people's subconscious.
Yeah. Another thing they didn't talk about either was the coffin ships and how brutal it was to cross the seas to get to wherever you plan to go, whether it be Canada, the States,
Hmm.
Australia, even going into England. I mean, of course, that's a shorter trip, so you had a much better chance of surviving.
Right.
Um, on most of the ships, the people had to bring their food to hold them over for the whole passage. So they didn't have enough food to live there on their own land. Now they're getting on a boat with no food and having to go weeks.
Right.
Unimaginable. Unimaginable. When we were out there, we did a ship tour of the Jeannie Johnston, which is a famine replica in Dublin. And this one was built out of I think it was built in actually Canada, but I'm not. That doesn't matter. They actually had a doctor on board for every passageway they went, and your cost of your ticket paid for your food. No one died on their boat on any
On any
crossing.
of the voyages, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. I definitely recommend if anybody's out there, go see one of the famine ships. I think there's a couple around. I want to say Wexford might have had one too.
Hmm.
I didn't get into Wexford, but the Dublin one was very cool to see. Ugh, the whole subject is just heartbreaking.
It is, and I get a lot of my information. My husband, when we were in college, he took several courses on Irish history, and um, while I didn't take the classes with him, I was, too busy taking science classes. I did after the fact, and several years, like after college, I went back and read a lot of the textbooks and learned a lot of the information from there. And there are there's a lot of information out there that I is glossed over and not really, as with most history, unless you're an expert or it affects your family.
Mhm.
you really won't understand what people went through at various times. And there were some of those books where I would finish reading a section and I would literally want to throw the book against the wall. I was so either angry at the situation or angry at what happened or ticked off that it didn't go better that I would have to put it down. And he would come by periodically and go, "Don't you remember, when I took this class, how, you would hear the thump?" He's like me throwing book against wall because I couldn't take it anymore.
It's, when we were out there, most of our travel to see things were all of historical value,
Hmm.
and we learned so much out there. And the one thing was, it's like no matter what they did, it was like they were suffering, year after year after year after year after year. It was like it just seemed like there was never any relief for anything,
Right. No,
Yeah.
I totally understand that. But yeah, I encourage anyone who has any Irish ancestry to read up on a lot of the history from the period, um, even the political doctrines, and just so you have an idea. Because it's not just enough to know the dates and the names and the facts, but you have to understand the thinking of the people at the time to truly understand how it was a spiraling out of control event.
I was told when we went to see the Jeannie Johnson, there's a book by Sinead O'Connor's brother
Hmm.
that should be read. I don't know the name of it, so just Google Sinead O'Connor's brother, because that's what I did, and it will come up with information on his book.
Okay.
Uh, but it's supposed to be really good, and he did very well explaining all the situations within, I think, the immigration and what was going on.
Yeah.
I'll look it up and I'll put it in the blog post.
Yay! Well, on that note, if you don't have anything else for, oh, my nose itches, for this evening, I think our time is up. Now that we're all depressed, I have to go have some whiskey.
Cheers.
Yeah, that's right. So next week's chit chat will be on the next Finding Your Roots episode, which is titled In Search of Freedom. And it will feature Maya Rudolph, Shanada Rhimes, and Keenan Ivory Wayans. Ooh, that should be a good one, yeah?
I think that'll be a good one.
I think
Especially
it,
Shonda Rhimes. She's so it right now.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So remember, we love to hear from you. Drop us a line in the comments below. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or send us an email at editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. And on that note, have a great day, everyone, and remember to go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye.